You are listening to High Heels and High Chairs, voted the best online resource for busy moms who wish to stay strong, sexy, and centered in a world of spit up and sippy cups. Whether you're a new mom, a grandmom, a future mom, or somewhere in between, you'll love these priceless tips, tricks, and tools you will learn today. Here is your host, top female fat loss and hormone specialist, Dr. Michelle Sands.
Hey, welcome back to High Heels and High Chairs, where we are talking about how to stay strong, sexy, and centered in a world of spit up and sippy cups. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Sands, and today we have a really amazing show. I'm super excited because we are talking about sex. Yes, we're talking about sex. We're talking about all the details of sex. And so you may want to put your headphones on, mamas, or, go in a room where your children aren't there because we are actually going to get into it. We're talking about details. We're talking about how to have more pleasure in your life, how to have a racier, sexier sex life with your husband, and to really just, go back to that passion, that romance, that good feeling that we had that, just wanted to make ourselves explode. Like, that's how we want to feel. And a lot of times I talk to moms in my practice, and I experienced it in my own life. After you have kids, sometimes that goes away a little bit, but it doesn't have to. So Scarlet is a mom. She's an author, a love coach, a speaker, and she talks about everything about sex, love, relationships, dating, and she really loves bringing out that intimate, juicy details. So you're going to love Scarlet. I fell in love with her the minute I found her website and I chatted up with her, and she's just an amazing woman. She really has a holistic health background as well. So she's going to really weave that all together for you. So Scarlet, thank you so much for being part of the summit. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to speak with you today. Welcome.
Hi, and welcome back to High Heels and High Chairs, how to stay strong, sexy, and centered in a world of spit-ups and sippy cups. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Sands, and today we have an expert that I'm super excited to talk to. Her name is Scarlet Amor, and she is an author, a love coach, and she speaks about sex, love, dating, romance, everything about intimacy and relationships that you want to know. And this is a topic that as moms, we don't talk about all the time. We kind of keep it to ourselves. But I think the conversation needs to happen, so it's happening today. And for all you mamas listening, you may want to put your headphones on for this one today, just because we are going to get into it. We're going to get into sex. We're going to get into the details. And we're going to teach you how to have a juicier, more hot sex life. So put those headphones on, and I'm going to introduce you to Scarlet. So Scarlet, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited about this.
Hi, Michelle. I am too, talking about how to get our sexy back on as mamas.
Yes. So, Scarlet, I'd love to have you share a little bit about your background and what led you to the point you are now as like a sex coach and romance, entrepreneur. But before that, you had an interesting story that we connected on in our earlier conversation. So I want you to share how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a mama of an almost 15-year-old girl. And way back in the day, I was a health coach for women. I helped women with, through natural herbs and dietary issues, helping them with the reproductive health care issues, because I personally had a lot of reproductive health care issues as a younger woman. In particular, I had a hard time getting pregnant and had some hormonal issues that it took me a long time to address and get to the point where I actually healed myself naturally so that I could have a beautiful, healthy, natural childbirth. So that was the breakthrough that led me to coaching other women on their more physical reproductive health care issues. But what would come out of those conversations in my workshops and coaching with women was this whole other conversation about intimacy and sexual energy and the very common pattern for women who have babies, that sex drive and that passion kind of fizzles a little bit. Now, it's not for everyone, but a lot of women would know, especially if they're breastfeeding, that, their intimacy life with their partners kind of fizzle out while they're putting all of that love and energy into parenting. So fast forward after, my first marriage eventually, unfortunately, ended. And ironically, it was due to intimacy issues. So my practice eventually shifted to coaching men in relationships to help them find new intimacy skills that they can bring back home to their wives. Because I really wanted to heal this wound between men and women that so often comes up in these long-term relationships of intimacy needs not being met. So really I'm just on this mission, this passionate mission to bring the sexy back to all people. And to me, I don't mean on the carnal level of sex, but like that soul level, you know, that deep loving bond connection between two individuals and between mama and baby that really keeps our whole lives afloat.
Yeah, you know, it's so powerful because I have to admit that I was one of those people that didn't think that I was going to be affected by my pregnancy. I thought, you know, once I had the baby, I was going to go right back to, you know, having like great sex life that we had. But, you know, there's really something to be said about the fact that like your body, like, you know, a woman's breasts are like a sign of her sexuality, and then now they're, you know, utilitarian like tools to feed the baby. So, you know, it kind of like messes with your mind.
Right.
So
and, you know,
difficult.
and yeah, and I find that, you know, through my own experience and all the people that I coached, you know, when it comes down to the parenthood years, you know, men and women basically just have different sexual needs when it comes down to it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I noticed that what commonly happens is, you know, the papas, when they see the mom going through the pregnancy and the morning sickness and she's growing this baby and then he witnesses childbirth, oh, my God. You know, most at that point are pretty floored and in awe and in reverence, right, of the goddess that his partner is. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, men will usually step back a bit from pressuring their woman for their sexual needs because they see what a superhero this woman is being, taking care of this baby, right?
Right.
But so it's like it's common for the daddies to kind of step back energetically and, you know, not pressure her too much because the woman is getting so many of her intimate needs met through the baby. Now, not sexual, but just that closeness with the baby. You know, she doesn't really necessarily need to be shagged every night for her emotional needs to be met. She's getting so many of those emotional needs met through her family. But men, on the other hand, I mean, they are wired as men. They still have sexual needs. They still have carnal sexual needs. And so what happens is, you know, it just depends on how long this period gets dragged out where the guys are kind of stepping back and holding space. Mama's being satisfied by the emotional needs of parenting. But, you know, daddy still wants to get it on. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a fine dance during the parenting years to really honor the differences in the sexes and, you know, just be aware of what's going on and really honor the baby daddies of how much they are holding space for us, but also to realize, you know, daddy has needs too.
Right. Yeah. So that's the difficult part. If you're not in the mood as a woman, or you know, it's just not one of your priorities. Like sleep is probably a higher priority than sex.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're so how do you deal with that? Like how do you, because you still want to, you know, satisfy your husband and your partner to be able to, you know, take care of his needs as well. So how do you deal with that? How do you coach people to work with that?
Well, the biggest kind of awareness I think we need to break through is that intimacy isn't just met through sex and, you know, sexual intercourse. And I think in the Western world in general, we kind of just equivalate the two. Sex equals love. Sex equals intimacy. Yeah. And so that's where we really need to get creative as a couple and with ourselves to redefine what intimacy really means for us and to find other ways for us to have those intimacy needs met in the relationship without necessarily relying straight on sexual intercourse. Because of course, like you're saying, I mean, oh my God, we're totally lacking sleep. The baby's, you know, breastfeeding all day and everyone's stressed and tired. And that is like really the least sexiest space you can be in. By the end of the night, all you want to do is just go to sleep, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And not necessarily have yourself groped. So
Yeah, and we need to be more in the mood, like mentally, and not, it has to be the right timing, and we have to like not be exhausted and not be thinking about something else. So in order to enjoy it, so there's like you can have the option of just like closing your eyes and powering through it, but that's not good for either partner, right? If you're not into it, or maybe it is. I don't know what your opinion on that is.
Well, no, but I think that's what a lot of women will do because, of course, they get it. Of course, my husband has sexual needs. So I'm just going to grin and bear it. And like you said, just kind of, spread my legs and let him go pound at me in the middle of the night, even though she's not really in that space and not really enjoying it. Women often have that kind of subconscious belief that they have to serve their husband, right? But
right, and I love that you have some other creative ways to get around this because, that's like the two options that we know in society is you either want to or you don't want to, but you just do it because you don't want your husband to get it somewhere else, basically.
Right, exactly, and that's what was kind of the downfall of my first marriage was that when I was going through my mama years and I didn't have a very high sex drive and I wasn't able to satisfy him with the more bang it out kind of sexuality, we didn't really embrace these tools that I've learned now to find other ways for us to connect intimately. And that was what eventually destroys the marriage. That's why it's so important for me now to be like, wait, there's so many other ways around this that we can save the relationship and keep things juicy. So
let's get into some of those.
Yeah. Well, I see it in two parts. The most important part that I think a lot of women, especially when we're mothers and taking care of everyone else, is your own self-care. And that's actually the piece I want to discuss first before we talk about other practices that we can do with our partners in the bedroom to build the intimacy up again.
That makes perfect sense. It's like when you're in the airplane and they tell you to take the oxygen mask on yourself first before you give it to your child. Like, in all aspects of life, whether it be sexuality, whether it be your job, whatever it is, you do have to take care of yourself so you have to fill yourself up so that you can give to somebody else or someone else. So I'm totally on that wavelength, and I love that you incorporate that. So let's talk about ways that moms can do some loving self-care.
Right. And it's exactly that mindset that you're bringing up of realizing that taking care of ourselves first isn't selfish. We need to put the oxygen mask on us first before we can save our family. So first is getting over that guilt trip that, oh, my God, if I'm going to take time out for myself, I'm not being a good mom. It's quite the opposite. It is important for us to take time out for ourselves. So the first tip I want to share is a little bit more on a physical end, and it's about practicing our Kegels. I'm sure for you as a health coach for women yourself that, we're aware of the PC, or the pubococcygeal muscles that are in our pelvic floor. It's really important for us, especially after childbirth, to keep the PC muscles intact. But for me, I'm not seeing this as just this physical thing to do. This actually ties into eroticism and getting your sexy back. So I practice exercises where I'm pumping my Kegel muscles down below, but also utilizing that in a sense of reigniting with my pleasure, because it can be pleasurable when you're pumping your PC muscles down below. So you pump, take a deep breath in, and you imagine all of that energy down there, in your lady part starts breathing up through your entire body, an invigorated body. And that's the practice in simplicity. But what I encourage mamas to do, since you are busy and on the run all of the time, to fit in your Kegel practices throughout the day. So if you're standing there doing dishes, pump your Kegels. If you are standing in line at the grocery store, pump your Kegels. At a traffic light, pump your Kegels. And it almost becomes this fun little secret because, yes, it is a little bit sexual, but you're doing it's something internal. It's something for you. It's something beautiful that you're just sharing with yourself. It's not like masturbating, So that's the
Right.
very, very first tip, is to make sure that you keep practicing your Kegels and keeping your pelvic floor intact, but doing it almost as a secret pleasure for yourself.
I love it. That's perfect. Now, do you have a resource for, I don't know if there's maybe some women who are listening who aren't sure they're doing it right. You know, that's always something that people come to me and ask me, like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. Do you have any resources or how people know that they're doing it right? Maybe there's something you could just explain real quick.
Yeah,
Can you do it wrong?
A simple doing it wrong would be kind of squeezing your butt and squeezing different muscles in your legs and pelvis that aren't exactly the PC muscles. The easiest way to find them is, when you have to go pee really, really bad, but there's a long line for the bathroom, and I'm talking like it's about to come out. The muscle that you squeeze to hold the pee back is your PC muscle. And the way that you can really practice it is when you are peeing. So if you're on the toilet, ladies, let the pee out, right? And then halfway through the stream, you got to squeeze those muscles down there to stop the flow of urine. And then you release them to let the urine go again. That's a fine way to tune into where your PC muscles are.
There you go. That's perfect. That's perfect, because I know that some women, like, they're just not sure they're doing it right. And it's not like it's like you're doing bicep curls where you can see your muscle. So, yeah, I think that's super important, and that's great. Yeah, exactly the muscles that stop through the flow of urine or, what you're using. So, yeah, even if you have to do that, a few times, just to get the hang of it.
Just to get your head in the game, yeah.
Yeah.
But the extra piece that I like, so the extra piece I like to add on to that is adding what I call tantric breath work into your Kegel practices. So, you're pumping the PCs, right? And this may be something that you may want to do a little bit more in private, not if you're a short line. I encourage women to develop their own self-care meditation practice and to incorporate some of these tantric meditative practices in with that. So it's not just about meditation and this basic concept of emptying your mind, but using conscious breathing techniques to get tuned back into your sexual energy. So when you do your Kegel pumps, you also will focus on some breathing practices. And I have some resources on my website for more information. Doing breathing practices that brings more awareness to just call it your Shakti, your female sexual creative energy that lies down there in our, in our lady parts, that you actually consciously tap into that through the Kegel exercises, through pelvic curls and these meditation and breathing techniques to tap into your own pleasure and just really connect with it yourself. That this isn't like masturbatory pleasure. This is actually the energy of your sexual power that you can tap into with conscious breath work and meditation. And of course, that kind of ties into tip number 3, which is creating space for yourself. And this is a tricksy one, and I know it's easier said than done, and it sounds so simple, but I strongly, strongly encourage all the mamas out there, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day, when the baby's down for a nap or the nanny has the kids or daddy's with the kids outside in the yard, instead of using that time to run off and go to the dishes and check your emails and go take care of all the things you couldn't take care of while the baby was on your back, take that time for you. That would maybe simply be sitting in your bedroom by yourself doing the tantric meditation, or just go on a nice walk outside, do some yoga, go get a facial. But I encourage women to do this consciously. So that means not, I'm going to go take a walk and scroll on Facebook. Oh, my God, I finally got 5 minutes in the bedroom alone. I'm going to tweet it out, pin something on Pinterest. Like, it's so common to think that downtime is just, oh, great, I can jump on social media. No, I'm talking about meditative, exclusive alone time to really connect back in with your heart and your center so you can come back to your family with just more presence and love.
You know what? Taking that 5 or 10 minutes out is going to make you more productive for the rest of the hour or the half hour that you had. So I totally agree that taking that time out for yourself is going to just refresh, re-energize. It's like feeding your soul. You know, you need to do this in order to be that mom that you want to be and be the wife you want to be, and be the woman you want to be. So I think that is probably like one of the best tips out there. But in order to do 1 and 2, you need to do 3, right? You need to get that time for yourself in order to, practice these other practices. So I love that.
Well, and then I have this other practice that I touched on a little bit, but I'm going to get into it deep now. When you have your private time and you want to get your sexy back, you need to first start with getting sexy with yourself. And this is where I'm actually going to encourage women to rediscover the art of masturbation and self-pleasure. And it's kind of like, wait a minute. Okay, I don't have time and energy for sex with my hubby. Like, I'm not feeling sexy at all. And you're telling me I need to go spend time masturbating? Like, it seems a little counterintuitive, but that's actually what is the breakthrough for women. If you're just really turned off by sex, if it's something extreme for you, you're really turned off by sex, you kind of cringe when your partner touches you, you don't know why because you love them, and you're just not sexually turned on, your libido is shot, you need to go back to the source. You really need to go back to the source and just play around with self-pleasuring yourself, even if it's just soft and slow and not even with the intention of building yourself up to an orgasm. I just encourage women to spend some time with their puss, even if it's just exploring with a mirror.
I mean, like what's that say? Like, if you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, it's just like
exactly.
When you don't go to the gym for a long time, and then you go back to the gym and you do a little tiny workout, and you're just exhausted, you never want to go back again. That's kind of like your sexuality, I think that with all things, if you put it down, it gets dusty. You need to dust it off, and get it going again. And I think that is something that women may think that they don't have time for. Or they, like you said, like they're not feeling sexy, so I'm going to do that. But you're right. I think that brings the flow of energy and sexuality back into your body.
Right, because you know how to touch yourself. We know how to find those pleasure spots. And another thing to keep in mind is that what was once pleasurable for you before baby often changes dramatically after baby. So, what got you hot and sexy before is not necessarily what the wrap is now, and that's why you need to rediscover it with yourself and explore your body, explore the different inside parts of your G-spot and your clitoris and your vulva, and rediscover what turns you on, because everything's kind of moved around down there after the baby comes out. So when you can rediscover where your new pleasure points are, that's when you can go back to baby daddy and be like, hey, check out what I just learned. If I touch myself here, it skyrockets. Do you want me to show you how I do it? And that will get the conversation going instead of daddy just kind of pounding away the way he's always done it, and he's feeling shut down and frustrated because he's not pleasing you the way that you used to be pleased. So now he's feeling wrong about himself, and it's just this whole downward spiral. But if you can rediscover where your pleasure point is and then in a gentle, loving way show him in this place of curiosity, that's when you can get the juice going back again, because the pleasure is back in the power of your hands, literally.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge piece there, because I think we think about how we feel after the baby's born and how our sexuality changes and how our view of ourselves and our bodies, and we get self-conscious and all these. The guys, they're doing the same things when we're not responding to their advances or not responding, with pleasure when they're, doing the same thing that they were doing that used to turn us on, and now it's not turning us on. It can be very confusing for them as well. So I think, helping yourself out and helping them out in the same area, I mean, that's what's going to open. I mean, if your relationship is going to be that one that really just lights you up and is full of passion, you guys have to communicate. And that's, communicating sexually is one of the things that is going to help strengthen your relationship. So I think that's huge, like knowing finding it out yourself, like discover it yourself, go on that adventure detective journey, and then share the findings with your husband or your partner. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and here's another side note for women that may be a little nervous or hesitant about being into this world of self-pleasure. Men commonly will turn to pornography, video pornography. But there's this whole other world for women that relates to women a lot more because women relate to their brain. So I would suggest looking into what they call mommy porn, which are like erotic romance novels, because for us it's not that carnal bang or hard kind of sex that may necessarily turn us on. For us, it may be the romance. So invest in some racy romance novels. Like, don't be afraid to read a little bit of erotica. And the cool thing with our technology, with like the Kindle readers, is that you can get a racy erotica book on your Kindle device without having a hard copy around. Because that would be the most embarrassing thing when your kindergartner comes up to you with the book being, reading 50 Shades of Grey in front of you. Mommy, look what word I learned, bondage, And it's kind of embarrassing, right, to have your kids kind of exposed to this pseudo-pornography.
Right.
So, when the kids that's a great time for you to just, read your Kindle on your own and allow the story to kind of just feed into you, and that's when you can practice your Kegels and your meditation and your self-pleasuring rituals to get into some of that mommy porn. So that's kind of my extra little tip for you ladies, to not be ashamed. Don't be ashamed for reading some romance novels that may get your panties a little wet and stirred up again.
Yeah, that's a great, and the Kindle's a great tip because it's true. Like, you don't want, especially if you're like reading, like, when you're around other people, if you don't want anyone to see it, the Kindle is great for that. So that's a perfect tip.
Right. So I guess the question comes back then, Michelle, of like, okay, we've taken care of ourselves. We're tapping back into our bodies. We're really honoring ourselves and relearning our own sexual energy on our own, so there's no pressure from our partners. But then the other question is, what do we do back at home with our partners when the guys are coming with, needs and we may not necessarily want to have full-blown intercourse? And this is where this whole other conversation comes around, to exploring all these different ways that you can share intimacy and sexual intimacy with your partner without having physical sex. And this is where
this is what I'm really interested in to hear. This is the part that I'm so interested to hear because, I don't know, maybe in my upbringing or in my life, I wasn't as creative with romance as I could be. And, people don't talk about this topic very much. So I love that you're talking about it and sharing this information with us. So, let's get into it.
Great. So, the first thing, you know how most dating advice for couples say, okay, make sure you have your date night, right? Once a week or every other week. Make sure mommy and daddy have a date night. But I know in my experience, often those date nights we're just so tired, and all we do is sit there at dinner and talk about the kids. Not necessarily the sexiest thing in the world, even though that's what it's designed for. So I like to think of it more of not so much like we're going to schedule this long date night a few times a month, but to have little vignettes of intimacy time in your day-to-day life. Again, even if it's only for 5 minutes, to have some of these sensuality vignettes in your life just to connect with each other and keep things going. So my first idea is I call it sexy pillow talk. And this is, again, you're both crashed out in bed at night. The baby finally passed out. You're covered in spit up. You're both so exhausted. But you still love your partner and want to connect with them. And, having sex is probably not the first thing that's going to happen in that moment. So the sexy pillow talk game that I really love to play is just go through some memories and talk about different times, probably pre-baby. Maybe think about your honeymoon or when you first started dating, and just kind of relive some of your personal romantic sexcapades that you shared with each other. And just talk it out like a story. Oh, my God, remember that time we were on vacation in Hawaii And we got, we had a few too many Mai Tais, and we went behind that palm tree, and then you did this to me and that to me, and then we went back to the hotel room, and I mean, I'm already getting kind of chills just thinking about it. We're not doing this with the intention of getting laid. You just go back and remember what it was like when you two were sexually passionate for each other and relive it.
Oh, that's a beautiful tip because you're right. When the kid gets to bed, when my son goes to sleep at night, it's almost like a mad dash race to the bedroom to get to sleep because we don't know if he's going to wake up. So it's like we're rushing to get to sleep, we're in bed, and then you just go to sleep. But if we did sit and talk about this, I think that's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing to relive these wonderful memories that you have with each other. And I have not.
Yeah, and just it brings your hearts closer together, and you remember the good times. I mean, some people can get into just sex, dirty sex talk, and oh, baby, I want to bang you in the. I mean, if that's your thing and that turns you on, then go for it. But I know for me personally that like kind of raunchy, dirty sex talk that isn't really real. Like I get so much more turned on by the romance and the heart connection. If that's your thing, great. But just check in with your partner and make sure. Sometimes it's often more the guys talking dirty to the woman to make sure that that's actually what she wants. That's why I go back to actually sharing intimate romantic deep stories from your personal life that may have more of an impact on the woman because they're more emotionally based. And that's also, you can read your favorite mamas, you can read your favorite chapter from your mommy romance novel, be like, oh my God, can I share this? And just read it out loud to him, the sex scene. See what happens. And again, you don't have to do it. The kid may come waking up like you have no idea what's going to happen. Just get back into the mind space of remembering what it was like to be sexy together.
Beautiful.
So another practice that I encourage couples to share, and this can be a short practice or a long one, instead of just going straight for intercourse, is to play around with sensual massage. And sensual massage is a little different than just the deep tissue therapeutic, let me rub your shoulders kind of massage. Anyone can do sensual massage, even if you don't feel like you know how to give a good back rub. The focus on sensual massage, one, is having a giver and a receiver. So the person who's the tiredest would receive first. You lay them down. You get quiet, romantic, meditative setting. And as the giver, your number one role is simply to give loving, sensual touch. We're not doing it to have sex. We're not doing it as foreplay, but just to touch your beloved tenderly and gently with concentration around how your fingers can lightly caress her back and knead down her legs. And you can kind of play around the erogenous zones, but not necessarily, I'm just going to go straight for her tits, And in this practice, and you just breathe through it and just tune back into the subtlety of the senses. And then when it helps to set a timer and switch roles. It's really important to switch roles. And then the giver gives to, and then you switch roles, and now you're giving to your partner. And it's the same thing, scratching down his back, kneading into the belly, and then doing light feather strokes on the inside of his thighs. And you can, kind of go around his man parts, but it's not about going straight for the gold. And this practice is just really beautiful just to share some intimate touch that may become pleasurable, it may become sexual, but that's not the goal. The goal is just to share this moment of sensual touch and connection and focus and presence with your beloved to turn your senses back on. And to add to that, I keep talking about tantric breath work, and I can't get into a lesson on that, on the short call, but that's another practice you can share with your beloved. If you guys can go take some tantric meditation classes together in some workshops, you can have resources on my website page, scarletamor.com/sexymama.
Okay.
But you can go and learn some meditation techniques together during these intimacy breaks, even if it's just for a few minutes. You can sit together in what we call yavyam. It's a tantra yoga position where the man is sitting Indian style upright on the bed, and then the woman straddles him sitting upright as well onto his lap, but you're facing each other. So you can see into each other's eyes, and your hearts are aligned, your sexual parts are down there kind of touching but not interacting, and you just do some breathing work together back and forth and get really present with each other. And because you're that close to your beloved and you're starting to move some of the sexual energy, that may turn your sexy back on when you're really back in that space of just loving your partner, just so in love with him, and you're doing your kegels and you're just kind of moving all this energy around and you love them so much and everything just slows down for a moment. It's in those moments that suddenly, you might just throw him down on the bed and go for it.
Yeah, and I think the act of
get turned on. Go ahead.
The act of being mindful about what you're doing and mindful about looking at his body, touching what he feels like, what he smells like, what your skin feels against his, all those things that you're actually being mindful about your intimacy and not thinking about the kids or the shopping list, all these other things. And I think that you almost can't help but to spark it back up. I think it's something that is a natural response if you let it happen, where I think in our society we shut down so many things because we're bombarded by just so much minutia of life, and we've shut down this whole intimacy part of our brain sometimes. So I think doing these practices to get it back flowing and get yourself back in the mindset and in the space of intimacy, I think is beautiful. Unfortunately, we're getting towards the end of the call, and I can't wait to hear the rest of them. I know that we packaged together some great resources for our listeners, right?
Yeah. So, ladies, you can go visit me at scarletamor.com/sexymama. And I have 2 ebooks discussing some of the topics that we talked about today. There's 5 keys to sexy self-care for mamas and 5 intimacy tips for parents who don't have time and energy for sex. And I'll go into more detail about the Kegel exercises, the meditation practices. I have a bunch of resources for you and an extra juicy tip that we didn't have time to share that I'm just going to lead you on over there on the number 5 on how to share intimacy without having sex. It's really juicy. So
I can't wait to get that. This is very, very enlightening and eye-opening, and even as a naturopathic doctor, and being very in tune and mindful with my life and my body, a lot of these little tips are things that I'm definitely going to put into use with my husband. He's probably not going to know what's going on.
Well, and that's just it. When you get your mind away from the goal orientation of let's shag and just get back into the gentleness of let's just connect and be in love and be sensual without any pressure, that often is the key to igniting that fire once again. So stay sexy, mamas. You got it.
Oh, my God. Thank you. Thank you so much for all this information. I think this is going to help so many couples and so many families. We may be having more babies. I'm not sure.
Right.
But Scarlet, we can find you at scarletamor.com, and then the download is at scarletamor.com/sexymama, which I'm putting all those links right next to this audio so you guys can just click and check her out. And she's just a beautiful, amazing woman. Her website is adorable. She has some great tips on there, and just I love her little sense of humor and her style. So you guys will really enjoy her. And I'm just so glad I found you as a resource, and I'm sure we'll be talking more in the future. So thank you so much, and thank you all for listening. I hope that you received a lot of value out of today's interview. I know I did. So thank you again, Scarlet. I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and sending love to all the mamas out there. Keep it sexy, ladies.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you received a lot of value out of this interview. I know that I did. I want you to open up to the possibility of making this new year the greatest opportunity that you have had so far to improve your life. This is about breaking out of paradigms. It's about learning the art of living. It is about honoring who you are as a woman as you discover who you are as a mother. It is about taking care of your body, mind, and spirit so that you can take better care of your family and be a shining example, a role model for your children so that they can grow up to be healthy, happy, and successful. I promise to continue to bring you educational, empowering, and inspiring content to help you achieve the body that you dream about and the life that you are meant to live. Stay tuned for more value-packed interviews, and be sure to check out all the resources on my website, metabolicmama.com. Until next time, wishing you a happy, healthy, hot day. Take care, mamas.